Hey, hi, good morning, everyone. Before we begin our session, I'd just like to invite everyone to sit a bit near since we are quite a small group, just so we have a more insightful discussion. Yes. Our session for this morning is really for us to get to know each other. And of course, for us to introduce to you the social entrepreneurs that we've invited this morning to discuss. One, if we're not familiar with social enterprises, what are they? And specifically, what is the good work being done in terms of in the agriculture sector? Specifically in terms of innovation to tackle some of the issues that we're facing and concerns that we're facing in the agriculture sector. Okay, great. So if everyone's okay, I just like to kind of give a brief background of what Vilgrow Philippines does. So again, I'm Ina. I am the program manager for our incubation programs in Vilgrow Philippines. Vilgrow Philippines is the leading women-led, women-owned, gender-smart social enterprise incubator here in the Philippines. But we also offer this support to the entire Southeast Asian region. So Vilgrow Philippines, as mentioned, is an incubator. So what does that mean? We support fund and mentor impact enterprises who are addressing social issues and social concerns here in the entire world actually through market-based models. So in Vilgrow, we believe that for us to enact social change, we believe in the power of social enterprises to do that. So to kind of show you as well some examples of how innovation can tackle social concerns and social issues, specifically in the agriculture sector, in the climate environment, I have two guests here in our entrepreneurs who are part of the agriculture sector. So I'll just sit down. This is going to be kind of a talk show moment. So please, everyone, just relax, listen to all of the stories. And we'd like to call on everyone later on to also gather insights from you based on their experiences and stories. And I'm sure that everyone here also carries a lot of experience and expertise. So we'd love to hear from you later on. I guess we can start by first introducing the entrepreneurs, and then after, maybe we can do a round of names, introduce yourselves, what organizations you're all from, since this is a small group. So let's maximize our time together and make sure that this discussion is fruitful and we get to learn from each other. So I'll call on our first entrepreneur. So please just state your name, your preferred name, your affiliation, your organization. Yeah, we can start with that.
Maayong buntag. Good morning, everyone. I'm Nalben Moreno. I'm the founding agro-entrepreneur of Green Habits Agri-Ventures based in the southern part of the Philippines, Davao.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jillian Santos, and you can call me Jill. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Anihan Technologies, and we're based here in Metro Manila.
Okay, thank you so much. We have another guest with us, but he's running a bit late, so he'll just hop on when he arrives. Since again, this is just like a storytelling, just for us to get to know each other more. Okay, and then right after, I guess I'll also ask our attendees here, maybe if we have extra mics, we can pass them around and we can just do a very short round of introductions so we all know each other here. And later on, maybe we can call on you to share your experiences based on the experiences that they will be sharing to us as well. Maybe do we have mics in the back that we can provide for everyone? We can start in the back. So please just state your name, the organization you're affiliated with, maybe even a brief background, as well as your designation.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Joey Tutanes from Camarines Norte. So I'm the Research and Planning Focal Person from the Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Norhayadi Makaling, the campus director for the School for Experiential and Entrepreneurial Development, based in Bulacan.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Butch Osaraga. I head the Gawad Kalinga Builders Institute. Good morning.
Good morning po.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Cristina Calvadores, and I am the farm manager of GK Enchanted Farm in Bulacan po.
Good morning. I'm Ken from Bulacan, Vegetable Trading Officer for Bayan Anihan.
Hello, good morning everyone. My name is Robert Chan Castor, a community enterprise organizer of Bayan Anihan.
Good morning, everyone. Carlos Capuchon here. I'm from Synchrony, a North American bank in the US, and we are based here in Alabang and in Cebu. So happy to meet everyone.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to be here. I'm Nicole Mendoza, Venture Associate at Vilgro Philippines.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Priya. I'm the founder and CEO of Vilgro Philippines and very proud to support amazing entrepreneurs like Nelban and Jill.
Good day, everyone. My name is Dan. I'm a community enterprise organizer of GK Enchanted Farm. We focus on swine production.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Allen Choson from Department of Agriculture.
Hello, I'm Rolene Sevillana, and I'm the program manager at Circular Cities Asia.
Good morning to each and everyone. I'm Pahmea Suminangka, chairman of Boldon Garby Women Agriculture Cooperative from Maguindanao.
Good morning. My name is Roseda, chairwoman of Kalian Bangsamoro Women's Agri-Marketing Cooperative from Maguindanao.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Raisa Abdul Magid, project officer from Acted Cotabato Base.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Noni Kaban, Southeast Asia Director for Good Food for Cities, Ricolto.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I am Diana Magid, Acted Philippines Cotabato Base Project Manager.
Hi, good morning. My name is Ace Estrada. I'm the founder of Rural Rising Philippines. I'm looking forward to a most insightful session this morning. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Luan from Convergences and also really looking forward to work with you this morning.
All right, Maing buntag sa tanan. I'm Jairus Ferrer, CEO of iFarms Incorporated. Currently, we are operating in Mindanao, and we are really focused on bridging development and innovation to Philippine agriculture. So thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lucille. I'm the Senior Project Development Officer for Acted. Nice to meet you all.
Good morning. I'm Erica from SGV and EY Philippines. I'm currently the Director for Climate Change and Sustainability Services. Happy to be here.
Mapia Mapita, Maing buntag. My name is Shim from the Moropreneur Incorporated, TMI.
Hi everyone, my name is Chantal Nieto. I'm from Acted, one of the organizers of this forum.
Great. Thank you everyone for sharing or introducing yourselves. It's great to see that we are all coming from different sectors. And Nelban mentioned that there are a lot of friends here from Mindanao. So happy to see everyone. Hopefully we'll be able to get insights from your different industries, different sectors later on after we hear the stories from our entrepreneurs. So I guess we can start our session by first, I would like to hear, or if you would care to share your experiences as well, perhaps dive deeper into the stories of your businesses, your companies. The question that we always ask in these kinds of spaces is, what is your why? Why did you start this venture, and why do you continue to grow it? So I guess we can start with Nelvin first. What was your goal behind starting Green Habits? And if you could also share more about what you do.
Okay. I grew up in a farming community and shared the joys and pains felt by smallholder farmers. I know what it is like to be poor. So early on, I knew that helping the smallholder farmers is really something that I would do. So I got an education in agriculture value chain. And then later on, after working from exporting companies in Mindanao, I changed a career from being a corporate employee to founding my own social enterprise because I have a passion to help the smallholder farmers. So we started Green Habits way back in 2020 at the height of pandemic, no? But although there were a lot of challenges, but I could not leave our smallholder farmers at the time, because we started helping the smallholder farmers back when I was working in an NGO in Davao. So because the NGO was closed due to pandemic, so I continued it myself. Again, it was because of my passion really to help the smallholder farmers. So our social enterprise is having a social innovation of transforming the farmers from being a traditional entrepreneur to an agro-entrepreneur. Traditional farmer to being an agro-entrepreneur. That is from being a production-oriented farmer to market-oriented farmer. So we have an approach, the agro-enterprise clustering approach. We follow that one. And then throughout the value chain of the smallholder farmers, our help from production to marketing. So from production, there's the training for them to become agro-entrepreneurs. And second, linking them to institutional market. That's for the market side. But these markets are actually high-valued markets because if we just do the usual way of bringing their produce to the wholesalers market and the public market, then I think nothing will change and the income will still remain. So we really focus on the high-valued markets. So fortunately, we were able to partner with Jollibee Group Foundation so that the produce of the farmers will be sold to the restaurants owned by Jollibee's chain. No? Of course. And other than that, we link also our farmers to the technical institutions like the Department of Agriculture, the local offices. And then currently we are partnering with POOM, Netherlands, the senior experts. The expert will be coming in October to help us in the solving the problems on cabbages and carrots that our farmers are growing. So that's what we are in Green Habits.
Okay, yeah, wow. So I guess for Anitech, we see the big picture. So in the Philippines, we produce like more than 1 trillion pesos worth of high value crops every year. And these crops go through a journey. So they're produced in season, harvested in season, processed, stored, and then eventually distributed for shipping, for export, or distributed locally. Now, every step of the supply chain, we are losing food. We are losing tons of food. And we lose about more than half, or almost 40% of that goes to waste, or is inedible, or is deemed unfit for consumption. So, and it's brought about by different causes like logistical mismanagement, and prolonged storage due to unfavorable conditions. So these inefficient processes and bottlenecks is what's causing us to lose more than 50 billion pesos worth of high value crops every year. And that's the problem that we really want to target. So Anitech is offering agri companies remote sensor systems that monitor crop quality and storage quality. We want to be able to ensure that our users reduce food loss by making better quality management decisions in real time. So we're offering both hardware, software, and actionable insights. So what we produced right now is the storage quality sensor system that can monitor key environmental conditions that affect crop growth and yield. So we can install this in any type of greenhouse or warehouse or hydroponic grow room. So this will allow you to reduce your on-site visits. It will help you process the data more. And let's say the environmental threshold, your greenhouse reaches more than 36 degrees, we can actually give you an SMS notification or an email warning you and helping you rectify the situation before you even experience food loss. So another thing that we're also developing is a nano sensor system that could detect pesticide level and food contaminants. And we also want to be able to estimate shelf life. So we see this problem mainly in the export industry. We produce a lot of bananas, we produce a lot of high value crops like mango, but then it gets delayed because of food quality testing. We have very limited testing services here in the Philippines. In the Bureau of Plant and Industry, I think there are less than 15. And then the other option is either buying that lab equipment, which would cost like $1 million pesos minimum. So what we want to be able to do is to give these exporters, give these operation teams a sensor that could be installed in the packing plant itself so that they could do faster quality assurance. So yeah, that's what Anitech is all about.
Great work, Jillian. And before we dive into more of the discussion, I believe JT from Miami is also here. Welcome, JT. Yes. So just to catch you up on the discussion, we just briefly introduced the entrepreneurs, your preferred name, as well as a brief background on why you started your company, as well as a brief background of what you do.
Yeah, well, good morning to everybody. And I'm JT. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Mayani. We're an agri-technology startup, and we're here. We're kind of like the shared mission with my co-panelists to empower smallholder farmers and fisher folks across the country. Right now, we have a network of over 139,000 smallholder farmers spread across about 5 regions, from as far as the Itbayat organic garlic growers in Batanes all the way westward to the South Botolan fisher folk associations that we have there, all the way down to Palawan, wherein we work with a lot of the nagkakaisang tribo ng mga Palawenyo farmers, where a lot of our raw honey comes from. Right now, we power supply chains for the likes of Shell, Walter Mart, Robinsons, Bonchon, City of Dreams, Max's Group, some of the biggest institutional buyers in the country, as well as operate an e-com platform where we deliver fresh produce straight to people's home. As a venture-backed startup, we currently work with the likes of ADB, Silicon Valley VC's Ag Funder, Plug and Play Ventures, as well as other impact funds, in the hope that we could co-create a lot of these impact in rural Philippines. We've started the company really because of a very glaring pain point we've seen in a lot of smallholder farmers. If you come to think about it, farmers farm because they want to be able to turn their crops into cash, right? I think no amount of sophistication, product innovation, whether it's AI-driven, machine learning powered, can really, I would say, grasp that wicked reality, right? That it's very, very difficult for a lot of our farmers to access a supply chain that's very efficient, very equitable, but at the same time, where you have a lot of data and you can have clear visibility on what the production is like and how do you intelligently match it with market demand. So I guess what we're doing right now is really, from an impact standpoint, boost rural incomes on the part of organized smallholder farmers. We've been doing this since we formally incorporated the company way back in late of 2019, right before the Philippines experienced a lockdown. And now that the Philippines is encountering a post-pandemic reboot and recovery. We're kind of doubling down on our growth and expanding our impact footprint across the country. So it's nice to see, fellow panelists, especially Jill, right, who works in kind of like I would say the supply chain technology side, the cold chain part, right? Because in the Philippines right now, we're seeing a lot of food wastage happening between the farmers, the shelves, and the consumer. So I guess that's where, platforms like this, right? Like 3.0 would come into the picture, that it could foster baseline relationships and meaningful connections.
Great. Thank you, JT. So a lot of insights have been shared, and you were able to get more of a background of what you do, as well as why, or the kind of problem that we're trying to solve. But the next question that I'd want to dig deeper into is, what were some of the challenges that you faced? I guess we can start with one, being a startup, entering this industry, this sector. As we all know, agriculture is a tough industry to get into. There's a lot of obstacles, but especially as a startup, as a smaller business, and you really need to provide that proof of concept before you can even provide recommendations or innovative solutions. What were some of the challenges that you faced in introducing this solution that you had?
Okay, yeah. So since Anitech is basically a cross between like deep tech and agri tech, I think the main challenge was really getting the MVP ready for pilot testing. So we initially had these ideas that would cost like 100,000 or 50,000 pesos a system, and then we got it down to 20,000, all because we didn't have money. So the struggle will always be, every startup will always say funding, but then it's even harder if you have, hardware as part of the solution. So I really needed to find co-founders that had that tech talent. And luckily for me, I'm a physics graduate. So I roped in a couple of my blockmates during the pandemic. And then we just started throwing down ideas and then joining competitions. And then that's how we got to this point where we're pilot testing at greenhouses and hydroponic growers. But then another challenge would be definitely getting to know the market, especially in the middle of the pandemic. We're not the type of startup that could just do market validation interviews online, since a lot of the farmers don't really have internet. So you really have to get there on the ground and know what the market, what the market is all about, what's really happening on the ground. So that was a struggle, but due to the economy opening this year, we were able to have more farm visits and get to know our stakeholders really well. And I guess another challenge is a lot of farms are still fragmented. It would be better for us if we could attack like associations or cooperatives that are already aggregated, so that we could do a one-to-many distribution model, attack all farmers at once and create bigger impact. So yeah.
In our value chain, there's a lot of challenges, and I think looking at the supply side for our farmers, as we know already that they have the lack of access to technology, lack of access to finance. But on our side, we already established the market. So you see, we have the Jollibee Group Foundation helping us that the farmers will be able to supply to their restaurants. But our problem was on the supply side. Why? Because our farmers are really having a hard time adopting good agricultural practices. That's one. So how can they have a good yield, a consistent volume and quality, if they don't have the technology that they need? So that's one. Two is funding. So we are a startup, so we have a limited capital. Although we were trying to link with microfinance institutions, but these institutions have their own agenda and they have their own priority. So that's our problem. Luckily, we have Vilgor Philippines who help us in having the capital needed for us to provide loan to our farmer. And at the same time, a buying fund, so that when we get the farmers produce, we can pay right away, because that is what they really need. No? So on the market side, I agree with you. There's really a problem in the post-harvest because, of course, the facility is quite pricey. No? So for us, we really have to find a way where there's always a pressure to sell all the fresh produce because we don't have that kind of facility. Yeah. So those are our problems. On the management side, because we're a startup, we're just new in this environment. So there's always this business management skills gap. For instance, right now, we're supposed to scale our activity in Davao City. However, because our accounting system is not yet in place, so we have to work back, and find partner who can help us set up our accounting system, because this is an institutional market that really needs a good accounting system, a good system that can really trace back where the producer coming from, if there's a good quality, something like that. So those are the challenges that we have as startup entrepreneurs, especially in the agriculture sector.
I think for us, it's really bridging what you're building in the dev shop and bridging it with rural voices. For us, we've always held the philosophy that you want to be able to humanize problem solving as the centerpiece of innovation. We've seen, I remember when we got some funding from Asian Development Bank, you were building a proprietary engine that would allow farmers to pledge harvest ahead of time. And then it was only after several and hundreds of community organizing sessions and consultations at the grassroots unlocked the insight that perhaps a reverse marketplace model would work better, wherein we can tell them what we're looking for. Let's say right now, honeydew gold, right? That's like a high value crop. Red onions. At the time we're in, we have a huge shortage of white onions right now. Carabao mangoes, because it's export quality. So if we are able to tell them and give signals from the market in a very data-driven way what we're looking, then I guess that's where we can harmonize and dovetail production for the long term, for both the short term and the long term. So what we've learned there, and kind of like the pitfall we've always been sharing that a lot of the startups should avoid, is to not insulate what you're building in the dev shop with the customer and the right stakeholder. You always need to run some relevancy check. You always need to do some road testing and some on-ground litmus test. Is this something that they can live with, right? Is this something that they're going to use daily? And in our case, if we are able to embed the financial incentive for them to be able to use whatever proprietary software we have, I guess that's the best chance, right, we have when it comes to digitizing this supply chain.
Sharing. The points that I'm picking up from the experiences that you shared is that being a agri-tech or an agricultural startup, it really requires, or there's really a premium in collaboration. And you're really targeting two main stakeholders. One is, of course, the partners who will be able to support, fund, provide that technical assistance for you to grow your product or service. But more importantly, your farmers. You need to be in touch with the community. As you've mentioned, what is a solution if it doesn't provide the solution that they actually need, that would actually be valuable to them? So I wanted to ask you how you're able to kind of navigate that space where you are still providing valuable solutions to the farmers, but is there a difficulty in trying to explain that or make that known to, for example, funders or different sectors who will be able to provide you the technical assistance? Or do you think that there's still a gap between what is actually needed on the ground and what people are willing to support?
Yeah. So in terms of gap, yeah, definitely in terms of Anitech, there is a need for us to build trust with farmers, because usually when you ask a farmer a problem, it's really more of, okay, production side. But then they're not really thinking about the next step, which is you have to, there's still storage, there's still the processing, and then there's still that stage of distribution. So I think in terms of that challenge, we need to be able to create market awareness, let them know that, okay, the reason why we're monitoring these environmental conditions is we because we want you to be able to farm smarter and not harder. Like because we're monitoring carbon dioxide, temperature, and humidity, we can actually help you reduce heat stress. We can tell you when to turn on your misting equipment. We can tell you when to irrigate. We can tell you when to water your plants, because we are monitoring these types of conditions. And for example, at the post-harvest stage, let's say warehouses, we can tell them if they've exceeded a temperature threshold. Because if you exceed a certain temperature threshold, the most likely whatever food you're stocking there will harvest bacteria or molds. So that's what we can prevent. And that's very dangerous, especially if you're distributing to, let's say, retail markets or consumers. So I guess really the main thing is we need to be able to get them to trust the technology and get that story across that, okay, we need to monitor because, regulations are getting tougher and tougher every year, especially for the export industry and even for distribution, because consumers are becoming, they want to be aware of how much pesticide you're putting in these crops and the food that we eat. So that's what we want to be able to provide. We also want to be able to provide transparency in terms of the food that we eat.
Okay, as I've told you earlier, there's really a difficulty in collaborating with other partners. Like for us, we have a difficulty in partnering with the microfinance institutions and other financial institutions that we've talked with, again, because they have their own agenda. So platforms such as this is actually a good avenue for us to really connect. I really like to connect with you. No, we really need your technology for our smallholder farmers. And we really like also to connect with other partners here to help us to show to our farmers these technologies that are really needed to boost their production, and also to tell our market that we are doing something so that we can produce food safe, I mean products that are food safe, something like that. So again, as I have said, to be able to provide solution for this gap that we have, again, this avenue would be good for us, to communicate to our future farmers of the things that we need.
Well, Ina, allow me to engage that like on two levels, right? I think number one, from a mindset level, two, from a legitimacy level. I think when it comes to a mindset level, a lot of the innovators would actually come towards rural communities and have this very strong messianic complex, right? Like we want to be able to save you and change your lives from this day onwards. When in fact, I think the best approach and the ethos that you bring towards a community is winning with them. A bottom-up approach wherein you're actually sharing with them how you're simply a conduit, like in our case, just a bridge towards downstream markets, on how we are simply not even an enabler, right? But really just a downstream partner for them, and that they are their own enablers. And if we are able to give them avenues to capacitate themselves and see their full potential, I think that's kind of like the best mindset that you bring into those rural communities, instead of having and sporting that messianic complex that you're there to save them, right? I think second one, from a legitimacy standpoint, you fill in that gap when it comes to adoption by getting what we call social license, right, to work with them. And we're borrowing that term from the mining and the extractive industry we're in. You take a look at a lot of the mining companies, right? The reason why they're very strong when it comes to community organizing and community engagement is because they need the social license of the local community. They need the buy-in from the grassroots to be able to legitimize their operations in that community. And so in our case, to be able to generate that buy-in, we really need to undertake this high-touch approach before we even go high-tech, right? So that high-touch approach before you even go high-tech is something that's a requisite for us. It's like a one-step back, two-step forward approach, right? Like you don't come in and then share them, okay, I have an AI-powered proprietary software, right? Like I think for us, getting that buy-in is very, very important, because that first mile all the way to the last mile, you wouldn't even reach the shelves and the consumers unless you get the farmers to participate and you get them to be onboarded into the program. And so for us, everything else is secondary. We're really humanizing problem solving here. And whatever innovation, may it be product innovation, service innovation, offering innovation, all those different types of innovations that we're rolling out, I think it would always boil down to how your primary stakeholders would perceive as valuable and beneficial for them in their day-to-day lives.
Great. I really like that anecdote that you shared, that it's really before you go high tech, you should go high touch. Because as a development worker myself, I think it's very important to get to know the community and having that mindset that it's not about introducing something new, and most likely that these communities, they have the solutions, and it's up to us, as you've mentioned, as the conduit, that we're just kind of unlocking that solution and helping them develop it. So it's really about co-creation. If we want to be able to tackle, the hardest or the most difficult issues that our country is facing, or the world is facing, it's really making sure that we're coming in with co-creative solutions, and we make sure that we're always kind of flexible. And because at the end of the day, what we're after is really, what can we do to help solve this problem? What can we do to help alleviate this kind of issue that we're all facing? I wanted to touch more on, as we've mentioned, we have a lot of challenges, I'm sure, as startups, but I wanted to kind of maybe highlight as well, what are some of the key learnings that you've experienced throughout your experience as a startup, and what were some of the opportunities or even pivots in your business that have led you to where you are now? Since, as we've mentioned and as we keep talking about here, it's really just going through the process and trusting the process as well, and learning from other people, in this case the communities that we work with. So I'd love to hear how your business model or your ideas have changed because of this co-creation.
Yeah, so I guess as we get to know more stakeholders, we get to interview them, we get to know the market well. I think actually for us at Anitech, we're still not satisfied with our business model. I mean, it's still an initial model. We're still working at subscription, down payment for equipment, and then charge a recurring fee every month. But I think as time goes by, as we get to know each stakeholder at each stage of the supply chain, we are considering exploring different types of models. Because right now we're at subscription, but what if it could be outcome based? What if it could be pay per use? What if it could be a savings model? I think for us, it's really more of being open to the idea that we have to try these different pricing models, because farmers or even warehouse owners don't necessarily want to pay for the sensor. They want to pay for what the costs that they're saving due to spoilage. So I guess the trick is really finding that right price point where both parties are happy. And I guess also in terms of the technology, I guess there's a lot of opportunity for us to venture out, not just in crops, but in livestock, poultry, and fisheries as well. Because, for our storage quality sensor, we basically just need to correlate and monitor gases that are essential for, let's say, whatever crop or whatever type of agricultural product that you're storing in there. So let's say for poultry farms, they don't necessarily need carbon dioxide, but then some of these chicken coop farms experience high levels of methane and ammonia that could prove most toxic to both people and the chickens. So we are open to exploring different opportunities like that. And of course, developing it right now, we're still at this stage where we're installing these sensors at open warehouses or warehouses or greenhouses without any ventilation. But then through time, as we accelerate the maturity of our sensor systems, we want to be able to install our sensors in trucks, in transit, in shipping containers. I guess it will just people just need to understand that there's a longer R&D cycle for it. We're not the type of startup that could sprint a solution in 1 month. Yeah, that I guess that's it for me.
Thank you. Our journey as a social enterprise in the agri sector has its ups and downs. One is when we see that there's transformation of our farmers from being production oriented to market oriented, that they plant based only on what is needed in the market. For me, that's one of the joys that we have in our social enterprise. And they see that their income is really going up. We're so satisfied with that, and we're so happy with that. Our downs actually is there for the adoption level of the farmers to go into good agricultural practices, to produce foods that are really safe. No, so for the part of the supply side in the value chain, again, we have our strengths and we have also our weaknesses. So that's one thing that we are really documenting right now so that we can improve. We can continue the stress that we have, the weaknesses that's one that we can improve. There's no much change in our business model. We really love our business model right now because again, our farmers need a market access. So that's one that we are addressing. But we would like to scale up. That is one thing that we would really like to do. But with the limited capital that we have right now, it will take time for us. But there's always hope because I believe that there are always partners who would like to help also us in improving the lives of our farmers. Probably the second step that we would like really to do is to engage in the financing of our farmers. Because again, as I've said earlier, that's our weakness, no? We've done a difficulty partnering with the financial institution because, of course, the farmers, they don't have these assets that, the financial institutions wanted to have us to secure, the payment of the loan. So those are the ups and downs that we have right now. But again, there's not much change in our business model. And we would like again to reach to more farmers and to reach to more institutional partners that is aligned with our mission, that to make our activity as part of their corporate social responsibility.
All those insights from Nell and Jill actually strongly resonate with us. I think just two things. Number one would be entrepreneurs would always ask themselves, especially in this sector, what's the logical next step? What's the logical next step? And then for us, we've always banked on partly instinct, but largely data to be able to determine and guide us and serve as that strategic compass which next path to take. For instance, a lot of us would want to see expansion of footprint when it comes to our network of smallholder farm and fisher folks. And then, one quick realization we had in reality was that, the Philippines is one of the longest discontinuous coastlines in the world. Over 34,000 kilometers of discontinuous coastline. And that makes us inherently a maritime nation. And then we were looking at a lot of the communities and we saw that in rural areas, majority of communities live along coastlines. And so by extension, you really have a lot of fisher folks, but at the same time, in the post-catch value chain, you also see good roles of women when it comes to traditional methods of post-catch processing, i.e. drying, salting. That's where you have a lot of danggit, right? And so for us, it was very natural based on actual on-ground reality and data for us to take on, okay, let's onboard fisher folks too, right? Because they're inherently part of smallholder value chains. And what we're doing here is really built for the Philippines, being an archipelago nation, one of the longest discontinuous coastlines in the world. And so I think you need to be able to be more conscious on how these realities can inform your next move, right? And how you can move from strength to strength. So you're not moving from one point to another very arbitrarily and basing just on guesswork. I think second point would be discarding this, we can take this on alone mindset, right? It's not a winner take all market. Unlike what we're seeing right now in traditional e-commerce marketplaces like the large ones, right? Wherein you burn through your war chest, right? Just for the sake of growth, and then you realize, okay, maybe it's not a sustainable business. I think in our case, if you want to unlock the $10 billion Philippine agriculture output value, we need to be able to work together. And I'm not saying that just because they're here, right? Right? Because a lot of people would have that, kind of like that approach, but because it really is. If you take a look at the entire agricultural output value and that entire value chain from upstream to downstream, that's a lot of work for a single player to take on. I can't do what Jill is doing. I can't do what Jill is doing, right? And so, I think it really entails a multi-stakeholder approach, recognizing that there's just so much opportunity out there. It's a massive problem that needs solving, but it's not necessarily just you who needs to solve it, right? So you either create or develop your own, you build your own, or you team up, right? And so and the third point, perhaps just the last one, was really also making your investors understand, right, that this is a slow burn, right? Like we don't belong, right? Like we don't belong in an industry wherein you could see exponential outsized returns at a short period of time immediately in a snap, right? Like this takes a lot of on-ground work, rural transformation, and it's going to take some time. So you need patient capital, not just aligned capital, but patient capital to be able to back you up all the way. Hey, believe in us in the long term, right? Because this is not something unlike other industries like fashion tech, right? Or maybe other industries wherein we could see quick returns, right? So I think you need to be able to talk to your investors and say, also analyze where they're coming from. Are they an impact fund? Are they investing out of their own balance sheet? Is this a fixed life fund? Understanding a lot of those fund structures, right? And seeing, okay, what we need is an alignment of the big vision, and we need patient capital to be able to do this.
Definitely. Yeah, really great that you shared that. And I also wanted to highlight, since you did touch on, the kind of opportunities for growth that you're exploring right now, but perfect that you mentioned that in order for us to kind of solve this together in agriculture, we need to be able to kind of maximize or even tap into that multi-sectoral collaboration. Because as you've mentioned, one, this is a very slow process. The seeds that we plant, we may not be the ones harvesting them, to, if I can use an agricultural metaphor. But of course, this is going to take years of work. It's going to take years of service, essentially. So it's great that you mentioned that, because this would be the perfect opportunity to kind of open the floor as well, to get more insights from our attendees who do come from different sectors, for them to kind of maybe share some comments or insights as well from all of the stories that you've shared. This is a great opportunity for us to learn from each other. So maybe we can also pass the mic to anyone who would like to add to the points raised, maybe even ask a question, or maybe even provide, based on the challenges that they've shared, maybe you have some advice that you can share with our entrepreneurs, some potential partnerships to tap into.
Given the challenges that you faced, I was just wondering if, for instance, if given the opportunity to speak to policymakers or leaders, what priority areas would you want prioritized, and what key recommendations in policy making would you ask of them in order for SEs like yourself to, I guess, be more enabled to grow, to develop, and to scale? Yeah, I think in terms of policy, I guess I'm actually really happy that the current administration now just declared that agriculture is one of their top priority areas. But I think in terms of what to prioritize first in the agricultural sector, because there's so many bottlenecks, there's so many interconnected problems. I think they should number one, be able to focus on infrastructure, farm to market roads, the expansion of greenhouses, post-harvest facilities, definitely, because these are the types of infrastructure that no startup can do. You know, that should be the government's number one priority, building sustainable infrastructure. Because if there's more greenhouses and there's more warehouses, then of course, well, in our case, Anitech would be happy because we have somewhere to place all of our sensors, right? So I guess that infrastructure. Number two, definitely in terms of subsidy for farmers, I guess subsidy, and definitely putting them all in a database where all the agencies, all the branch agencies have access to. Because that's a problem as well. As far as I know, with conversations in certain events and meeting different government officials, the Department of Agriculture doesn't have a uniform database, so it would be great if they could also prioritize that as well. And I guess they should also double down on the other opportunities that they're giving, like the Young Farmers Challenge. Definitely that should be expanded as well across all regions, all provinces. Yeah, I guess that's it for me.
Well, there's one thing that I'd just like to add. There's already the facilities of the Department of Agriculture. However, right now, it's the number of facilities, like for example, soil laboratory, is just very limited. Like in Davao region, there's only one. Oh my God, there's a lot. There's hundreds, millions of smallholder farmers now, and it's quite not good to have one. No? So I hope that that our policy makers will prioritize the facilities that are needed by our farmers. I agree with the infrastructure. You know what? When I go to the area of the smallholder farmers, like I'm climbing 1,600 meters above sea level. That's my area. So because there's no road infrastructure, I go by foot. No, sometimes if my caballo, if there's horse, then I have to ride with the horse. No, so it's quite difficult. So that's really the area that I have right now. So infrastructure would be a good investment of our government.
Oh yeah, and definitely additional research funding. Yeah, that's.
That's a tricky question, right? Because now you need to be able to make a determination. What are those things that ought to go to the state and that they should foot the bill there? And where do you draw the line wherein, okay, this is private sector, they should be shouldered by startups, but this should be shouldered by the public sector? I think for one, anything that would need native legislation and policy and agenda setting, I think number one, funds for capacity building, right? Like if you come to think about it, it's the private sector, who's especially startups, right, who's been doing a lot of capacity building. That comes at a cost, right? That's not for free. But then again, you just stuck it in your margins and you make things work in terms of the unit economics. But if you step back, you need to be able to recognize that, okay, I think capacitating farmers and fisher folk should be on the state, right? On the part of the public sector. I recall like there are specific grants right now, and I think it just needs to be amplified. It's a good thing that right now the agri-fishery sector is a centerpiece of the current political administration, at least for the next 6 years. And that's very good, very explicit that this is the centerpiece. This is going to be a key cornerstone of the Philippine Development Plan. But right now, you just need to amplify and reinforce and augment a lot of these programs. Let me give some concrete examples. I think what you have right now is the Kadiwa, you have a Kadiwa grant, right? Like an enhanced Kadiwa grant wherein DA can provide trucks to farmers so that at least they would be able to defray that huge logistical cost that would be stacked on top of the farm gate price. That's a huge help. If we are able to, like what Jill mentioned, amass all those cooperatives in one master database, be able to identify come up with a pecking order. Okay, which cooperatives go with, do we grant Kadiwa grants for the truck, right? Let's say, you don't need to climb up a mountain, right? Like to be able to engage these farmers. So if only we could augment those. I think second would be, since the Philippines would always experience about 20-25 super typhoons in a year, with each typhoon becoming more stronger than the previous one, you would almost always have a scenario wherein agriculture crops would be wiped out, right? And agricultural damages would always take a toll on the economy. So two interventions there. Number one, let's provide seedlings and climate resilient crops to a lot of these farmers. But secondly, let's come up with like more innovations around how do we insulate their livelihood against these climate realities, because they're real and they're felt and they're really there. They really wipe out and they really come in uninvited into the Philippine area of responsibility, right? Like it's a fact of life. So how do you come up with like agri insurance, for instance, crop insurance, for instance, and be able to take on initiatives that would allow the agriculture sector to quickly, very nimbly step back, right? And be back on their toes and recover and rebuild themselves, right after these super typhoons. So I think just those things, right? Whether in aid of legislation or whether the executive branch can actually come up with IRRs, like implementing rules and regulations to be able to roll out those things, I think those would already serve as good rallying points, right, for us to be able to see vast differences in rural communities.
Great, thank you so much. I guess based on what you shared, I guess what's important to highlight is that question of what is the responsibility of, as you've mentioned, the state, the government, and what is the responsibility of the private sector, or what role does startups play in this entire ecosystem. But maybe it's despite all of our asks, we have a lot of, because we are at the forefront of these issues. We consult directly on the ground, these farmers, and we are developing solutions. But maybe it's best to frame it as how can we further converge, kind of collaborate and learn from each other. And for example, avenues such as this, platforms such as this, where we have multi-sectoral organizations, we have different representatives from different sectors, whether it be private or public, to kind of bring forward and make those, for example, programs or assistance more accessible to startups. And on the other end, kind of introduce as well what are these innovations that are being done, that are being kind of nurtured and developed, and what we can further tap into to kind of expand it as well. So it's really about kind of unlocking that partnership, that co-creation, as we keep kind of bringing up during this discussion. So I think that's important to kind of highlight that it's not so much a question of this is my role, this is your role, but more of how can we work together? Because as we keep mentioning, it really is, it takes years, it takes a lot of time, and really takes commitment to kind of collaborate on these solutions and kind of allow it to grow with us as well. Okay, great. Do we have any other comments or insights? Since we mentioned a lot of policy recommendations, perhaps somebody from the Department of Agriculture would like to comment, or even, or perhaps anyone else here who kind of echo the same sentiments as our entrepreneurs.
Well, I'm not actually part of the Department of Agriculture. I used to. I'm a part of the technical advisory group of Secretary William Dar. Okay. So with regards to the partnerships that we are looking at, well, I would like to first comment the young agripreneurs, I should say agripreneurs, for leading the pack, because you have the advantage, because we are now living in a digitalized world. So lahat ando na di ba? Just push up a button and you will see the kind of technology that are now being practiced in other parts of the world. But this is more of about leadership, okay? Because when we talk about policy, so when we step out of the Department of Agriculture, we submitted to President Bongbong Marcos the National Comprehensive Program. It's called NAPMIF. And basically all the programs are there. But the key word is convergence, because the LGU plays a vital role in implementing all these programs. So That's why part of our program is the province-led agriculture. So this is called PAFES, Provincial Agriculture Fisheries Extension Services. Because I hope you will understand that the role of the Department of Agriculture are now devolved to the local government. So basically, with the implementation of Pandana's ruling come 2024, additional budget will be given to the local government officials. So what will the Department of Agriculture do? So basically, they will be there just to oversee the programs, whether the local government officials are giving some support to agriculture sector. But reality dictates that some of the program of our local elected local officials are geared towards, I don't have to mention, I think. So this is just my take. Leadership is more than just a technique. Leadership is about people. This is all about community. This is all about change and what's happening in the moment. Secretary William Dar was a classic example of a servant leader. He is a servant before a leader. So the LGU, of course, is also a leader in their own province and municipality. But all the what we're seeing right now should not be put the blame on the Department of Agriculture, because there is such a thing as the steering role. The LGUs will have to harmonize with the national directions. Every LGU will be part of the real solution. So I guess this kind of platform, this kind of fora is one of the solution, I think, for us, for our sentiments to be heard by our local officials. And hopefully our local officials, because they are leaders on their own rights, must play their role as far as the call of our president with regards to food sufficiency and food security. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I think that's very important to highlight as well, is that when we talk about policy, we always think of it's the state or the government as this one big entity or role. But as sir mentioned, there's also efforts as well to kind of decentralizing them. And that's the role of that, is really to make it more accessible to these smallholder farmers, fisherfolk communities. But then again, it always comes back to convergence, even within the government, that we have this national mandate, but then we also need to collaborate with local officials to make sure that they're being kind of trickled down to the communities that need access to those the most. And just, I guess, being more creative as well and trying to be strategic and intentional with the kind of partnerships we create, both whether it be with the government or amongst ourselves. As we've mentioned before, that there is a lot of opportunities in collaborating even amongst the startups in the agricultural sector. Would you like to comment on sir's question or insight? Or
I guess just a quick one, sir. That puts a lot of things into perspective, because for local communities, the local government is the government, right? They're at the front lines of governance, and I definitely agree. We have an enabling framework, the Local Government Code of 1991, which has decentralized a lot of power to our LGUs. They have the internal revenue allotment. They can undertake a lot of governance and administrative servicing to a lot of the rural communities. To normal fisher folk, si Kapitan is the government, yes, right? Mayor is the government. The municipal agricultural officer is the government. And I think being the frontliners of the day-to-day public administration and governance, the delivery of goods and services to the local community really rests on the LGU. So, and this is the reason why for us, we have always wanted to work not at the national level, but really at the regional and the local government unit level, because that's when it becomes more effective. So, sir, I think Jazz is a friend of mine here, who works mostly with LGUs. We've been working closely at the grassroots, very, very strongly. And I think that's the right approach.
Yeah, no, I think JP said it as well. I mean, definitely, we also want to be able to collaborate, especially at the regional level and the province level. So I don't think I can add anything to that.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for bringing that insight. Would anybody else like to share? Maybe even just comment on anything that we've been talking about so far? Like to add to some policy recommendations as well.
Hi, good morning. My name is Shim. I am from the Bangsamoro region. And as one of those agripreneur startuppers, I appreciate all of the stories and insight that you've shared. For me, it's enriching. And I like that you pointed out that one of the essential things that we need to do is to really do to get to know our community partners in the language of the development workers. We call it the empathy journey, deep diving and understanding the pain points, as well as the lived realities of our farmers, which is very essential. And that's the thing that we're doing. But we're facing also some challenges, especially in our area. One, and I hope you could also provide us more insights on how to address it. One is that behavioral, a lot of our farmers have knowledge based on traditions, which are passed on from generation to generations. And you've been telling us that one of the goal is to really transform that mindset from being a production-oriented to becoming a market-oriented one. But you're talking about a knowledge that is being proven by them, but is also causing a lot of harm to the environment. Second is that the kind of the produce or crops that a lot of farmers are producing is based on the available raw materials or what the mother earth is giving to them. So they're basing it on that. And then the major challenge is really on accessing finances, which is holding a lot of our farmers. A lot of our farmers are tenants nowadays, and they are tied up with the shark loans, which is happening. We have beautiful laws in this country. We have beautiful, very, very good laws and policies, but they're not being implemented effectively and efficiently. And so those are things that is coming to mind. But I see the potential of doing the data sharing as a way for us to really move forward and perhaps address and even help formulate more policies that are responsive to the needs of the people. Thank you.
I just like to comment when you said that transforming them from being a traditional farmer to a market-oriented farmer does not necessarily mean that there's more harm in the environment. Why? For instance, one of our clients wants that our farmers will become certified, GAP certified. No? So one of our advocacies actually is for the farmers, we don't undermine or the traditional things that they've done in their farms. But what we're doing is that we teach them that right now, what are the good practices that should be developed or that they should follow so that they will be included in this high valued market. In fact, sir, in our area, a lot of farmers don't know about how to use the right type and timing of application of the pesticide. But with us, that's one of the critical concerns that we have right now, because our client needs testing of the products so that they will be the products. The use of the pesticides would be the minimum level only, and that's the problem now. So with our approach, that's one we are very concerned, of course, no, with the environment. So in our approach, we teach them about how to adopt the good agricultural practices, because again, this is lacking among our smallholder farmers.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that statement. I think another thing that farmers need is really better access to quality inputs like fertilizers, seeds, and other nutrients. Because in the case of Anitech, we could put sensors anywhere, but then that doesn't negate the fact that farmers still need better quality inputs. Like we could give them notifications all we want, warn them that, okay, this greenhouse is exceeding more than 36 degrees every day. But then if they have no way to rectify the situation, then we're just giving out notifications. So I guess one way to collaborate on that is to partner up with, let's say, a good seed company or a fertilizer company, and then correlate the data that we're seeing in the farm or in the warehouse, and present these farmers or these operation teams with a solution to not just monitor but also actually solve the problem, or be able to reduce the risk of that food spoiling. I guess that's the key thing there moving forward. We don't want to be just another sensor company that pushes out data, because what is data if you can't act on it, right? So I guess we can't do that alone. We would love to partner with different experts in agriculture, or even the DA itself, in order to help really reduce that 40% food loss problem that we have in the Philippines, that's costing us more than 50 billion pesos a year.
Yeah, great insights. I think there's really much work to be done, and I really appreciate that insight that you mentioned, where there's only so much that startups can do as well. So there's again that need for collaboration. As you've mentioned, fertilizer. In my previous work with farmers, that's always kind of yung hinanakit nila. How the fertilizers are always so expensive, and it not only affects their production, but then they have to take out loans. And especially if they don't have a cooperative to get support from, it's really like an added burden to them. Yeah. So I think we have room or time for one more question or insight. Yes.
Hi, good morning. First of all, I'd like to commend you for everything that you're doing, especially with the farmers' work. I'm actually working a lot on circular economy, plastics, and the extended producer responsibility. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but the EPR Act of 2022, or the Republic Act 11898, recently lapsed into a law last July 23, wherein they are mandating obliged companies or product producers that fall into the large enterprise to really look at their plastic footprint, and then also make sure that they either whatever they put out in the market, they collect the same amount, and then year on year there are reduction targets. So you've mentioned earlier that you're working with Jollibee Foundation. Hopefully, essentially, you'll also be bringing your products to retailers. And these companies are large enterprises, and they're bound by this law. They need to comply with it. So my question is more on, because for sure, if they are being mandated to do this, whoever is supplying them would also need to kind of comply with it, right? So with that, are you looking at alternative options when it comes to packaging of your produce? Because now, of course, the easiest thing is plastics. I mean, so easy to transport. It protects the produce, prolongs the shelf life, protects from all these pests. But then again, because of the harm it does to the environment, fossil fuels we use to generate plastics, it's really becoming a hot topic. And there are also like other not so innovative, but how do I say it? Like bio-based materials. Like in Taiwan, I believe that they're using banana leaf to package the produce, like fresh produce. So are you looking at these kinds of alternatives rather other than plastic?
Well, maybe to couch it within kind of like a broader perspective, the challenge when it comes to a lot of the retailers, right? Because we work with like modern trade, general trade, Horeca, and a lot of food service players is we need this net zero circular economy discourse has to be brought back to earth, right? Like you really need to be able to ground it in such a way that they're able to see immediate benefits for them. Because what we're seeing is even at the level of retailers, they're just going to ask, okay, if it's additional cost for us, because they would still need to retail it, merchandise it, display it, and then sell it to end consumers. If it's not going to end up very competitively priced, they're going to, they're going to shy away from it. But I guess we're seeing more and more brands supporting this sustainability agenda and discourse. What we're doing right now, let's say we work with the likes of the Robinsons Retail Group. So they're the country's second largest multi-format retailer. They got brands like Robinsons Supermarket, Shopwise, the Marketplace. And we're doing a bottom-up approach when it comes to pushing for what we want to be the normative packaging for these types of products. So for instance, right now the standard one is you always have a cling wrap, right? Food wrap. And then, on the succeeding rollouts, I recall like we started pushing for eco bags. And then the discussion, we sort of elevated the discussion already. Why don't we go for like cassava bags? So I think little by little, a lot of these retailers, especially it's going to be year end already, they're going to be releasing their sustainability reports, right? And as publicly listed company, they do have this social responsibility, right? That they need to be able to protect and maintain. So we're making some strides there, but we need players like you guys, for instance, right, to help us out when it comes to the market education and awareness function. Because as players like us who's largely involved in supply chain work, distribution, we can only do so much, right? Like a lot of our supply chain guys are going to think about supply chain day in, day out, not really so much about studying, what's like the lifespan of this particular packaging, et cetera, and when does it go back to earth. So I think that's where we need to be able to work together, right? But we're seeing that the appetite in general of the market it's opening up. It's opening up. We're seeing a lot of the different trade channels piloting sustainable packaging. We just need a little push and perhaps the amplification of that agenda through other players.
Okay. Actually, I agree with you. On our part, we've been planning how really to change our packaging because we're heavy user of plastics. In fact, we were given trays by the local DA so that we will not use plastics but trays in delivering the goods to our customers. The problem is that those trays consume a lot of space in our truck. So we end up just transporting small amount of, the volume. So our transportation cost goes up. So we're kind of balancing it right now. Again, because we are a social enterprise, we are looking at the cost. So if there are other solutions that we would like to try, actually, we are not in the retail, but more of our is volume bulk delivery to our customers. So if there are other solutions, that would be great because right now, honestly, we don't have. But we are anticipating that Jollibee will really ask us to, of course, no, because the government will require them to do that, right? So we are looking to our partnership, so how we can really do this in such a way that it is cost effective. No, because it will really add cost to us, but not only us, but also to our smallholder farmers. I think we should have a balance about it.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely, it's more of the willingness is there. And that's also something that we've discovered in Vilgrow as well in our own programs tackling single-use plastics in the food and beverage industry is that it all boils down to the cost. We can all care about the environment, but if it's not cost effective, and of course, as a business, we're still driven by the market. And if it affects the cost, that's definitely the main consideration. So I think it's more of what are the solutions out there and how can we tailor fit it so that it fits our needs while also contributing to the better impact, since that's what we're all after. So if we're able to kind of overcome those obstacles, I'm sure that it would become more accessible and be even more expanded, not just in our industry, but in the commercial industry. Okay, great. So we're nearing the end of our discussion. So if last call for any comments or questions before we kind of wrap up everything. Do we have any other questions or insights from the audience? This would be your last chance to speak up. Okay. Well, if there's no more questions and insights, I'd like to thank our entrepreneurs today, JT from Mayani, Jillian from Anitech, and Nelben from Green Habits. I believe I'll open up the floor for you to kind of give your last closing message or even call to action to all of our partners here, since I believe we will have time to kind of mingle and get to meet everybody here in the audience. But before that, if you'd like to give some final words.
I guess for us at Anitech, we realize that, you know, like what JT said, no one company can solve everything. You know, with a sector like the agricultural sector, it's interconnected with a lot of bottlenecks, a lot of serious issues, and we can't solve it all. So through platforms like these events, where we can get to all different aggregate stakeholders here, or different people who want to help the industry come together and actually work towards fruitful collaboration and create positive impact, is really, really greatly appreciated. We should have more of these, actually. It's already hard enough for us startups that are, trying to go on the ground and doing all these farm visits. But if we find a way to, do a one-to-many type of distribution model, or one-to-many partnership strategy, that will make it all, that will deliver impact faster. So I'm grateful to have met my fellow co-panelists face to face. And I'm grateful to the audience that we have here. And definitely for anyone who wants to collaborate, we're very open to any type of collaboration, any type of partnership. We at Anitech want to be able to drive different types of solutions for different types of stakeholders, whether you're a hydroponic grower, a greenhouse grower, or even if you're in the post-harvest stage of the supply chain, if you're a food logistics company. So thank you, and I hope you can be part of our journey in making Anitech a reality.
Salamat for having us here. I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to speak to you and also get the insights right now with my co-speakers here. What I would like just to say is that I hope that we can really work together, but in working together, be aligned with our objectives, because sometimes there are collaborations that are really on paper. It does not work. So what is good in the collaboration is that there should be synergy, and there should be an alignment of the objectives, as well as a good expectation and good implementation of the roles and the responsibilities that are agreed during the discussion. So right now, I'm excited to work with you, to work with my fellow speakers here in the future.
Yeah, thanks for everybody for listening and all those incisive questions. I think on behalf of Mayani, we've always been about empowering smallholder farmers and fisher folks. And I think please support Anitech, Jill here, Jill of Green Habits, Vilgrow. I think Priya is also in the audience there for Vilgrow. If you're able to forge meaningful connections before you go home today, I think we would have ROI'd already, right? For our time and resources here. So I'd like to thank 3-0 conveners and the organizers for coming up with this one. And I hope we'll be able to come up with like more projects like this, as well as do any form of cooperation and mutual partnerships with any of the players here. So after this panel, I'm going to talk to my co-panelists here and see how we can undertake some projects for this sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much, JT. Pretty much wrapped it up. But thank you everyone for listening to this session. And hopefully, as mentioned, really the goal of this forum is really to build connections, meaningful connections, collaborations that work both on paper and in reality, and really tackle these solutions together. Our main theme for this morning is really convergence. So hopefully after this session and after this forum day in 3.0, we'll be able to start converging together to address all of these concerns and really come up with solutions that work for everyone. So again, thank you for joining us this morning. I know that it's very early, but hopefully this inspires you and motivates you to create better impact in whatever space you're in. So again, I'm Ina from Vilgro Philippines. And thank you again for listening to our session, and have a lovely day.